I'm a social scientist and applied anthropologist, and I've worked with cultural practitioners and done community consultation all over the islands for various purposes. I'm going to blow the ashes off of an older report that I did with Clay in 2015. I did the social science research component. Most of this won't be news to folks here, but it's worth going through. In 2014, 2015, I did in-depth interviews with ICs and other people in forest leadership at the county, state, and federal level across the islands. That fed into this report, this effort, and interviewed 14 fire leaders and one fire science educator, and asked a number of questions about the challenges to rapid wildfire containment in Hawaii. I asked fire decision makers about their experiences and recommendations on fire behavior, access issues, equipment and personnel, suppression practices, agency collaboration, use of online resources, and more. But the lack of available personnel and equipment, difficult terrain, high climate variability, and novel fuel types, especially the predominance of native grasses, were major themes. Also, high wind speed and low relative humidity were identified by interview participants as the key drivers of large fires, and were supported by analysis of weather and fire occurrence data that was done at the time by Clay and others. Of course, the majority of participants identified grassland expansions, particularly in native habitats, and the decline of ranching and agriculture as serious problems. To fuels accumulation and the decreased availability of critical sources such as water and bulldozers. I mean, this is all, it's particularly tragic post-August 2023, right? One firefighter said that by the end of his career, they would no longer be able to use old lava fields as fire breaks because they are increasingly colonized by ember-throwing grasses. So here's, here is a kind of a summary of the top recommendations that were given as a result of these questions, problems. To improve fire suppression, you can see the long list of them, but the major points were continue and increase wildland fire training opportunities for firefighters, increase pre-suppression efforts, including fire breaks and fuel breaks, landowner preparedness, resource mapping, and increasing the availability of personnel and appropriate wildland fire equipment for suppression efforts. I pulled a couple of quotes, particularly from folks working in Maui, fire responders in Maui. The point that was emphasized over and over is location, given our orographic geography. And one firefighter said, we don't even even have to ask what the fuel type is if we know the location. If it's at Lahaina Luna School, I know it's cane grass and that it's going to hit the big trees eventually. You can see these other comments about RH, and also the insufficiency of a number of the technological tools that were developed for the continental US fire behavior, real-time weather tools, and drought indicators. I mean, I suspect you all can, and Clay can update me on that, and hopefully there has been some improvement over time. But in lieu of that, what I found, and Clay suspected, is that people are using, in part, place-based environmental knowledge. And I'm going to move on to, let's see. Oh, yeah, sorry. I switched the slides around. Again, these are some of the recommendations, which I had mentioned earlier. The other thing to say about to continue increase wildland fire training opportunities for firefighters is that that is a venue for oral transmission of knowledge. And so with that, I'm going to just move on to, in my interviews, I also explored with the firefighters place-based knowledge and how they respond to and manage fire. Having worked with taro farmers and hula plant collectors and salt collectors, I knew that there was a growing unpredictability to gathering and managing resources. And I wondered how climate disruptions might be perceived by our firefighters. So, do firefighters use place-based knowledge to assess, mitigate, and manage fire? How do firefighters perceive and respond to a rapidly changing environment? What changes have they noted over the course of their career? And also, is there an oral history of fire? I also asked about sensory cues used in fighting fire, observations of the natural surroundings, such as animal behavior, fire behavior characteristics of invasive fire-prone plants, particularly grasses, environmental changes, if any, as I mentioned, over the course of the participant's career. I also asked how firefighters factor in protection of Hawaii's biocultural diversity in fire mitigation and management. What emerged from these questions, and perhaps unsurprisingly, is that given novel fire regimes, limited resources, and technological tools that were developed for the continental US that don't always work for our island biogeography, is that firefighters adapt using an amalgam of native and new environmental knowledge. I'm just going to give a few examples here. Several of the firefighters discussed the importance of knowing the diurnal wind patterns of an area. A burn boss told an interesting story about a prescribed burn at Kauai Harbor. He consulted with older fishers. They told him within a couple of days of the new moon and the winds died down at night, an ideal time for night fishing. He consulted the Hawaiian fishing calendar to plan a prescribed burn at night. On the day of the burn, it was howling wind and into the evening. At 8 p.m., as per the fishing calendar, the wind died down and they were able to execute a perfect burn. As he put it, we saved the taxpayers a lot of money. There's an elaborate, all of you know this as well, there's an elaborate curing and burn taxonomy of invasive grasses. This is repeatedly mentioned. Here's the one example, turning fire science on its head. Guinea grass, the most volatile of the invasives, is as dangerous alive as dead. It can ignite in high humidity and reburn, leaving firefighters without the traditional safety zone or being into the black to finish fighting the fires. By contrast, native peely grass has a slow, clean burn, according to the folks who are participated in the study. Fuel sources have distinct smells, which are useful for firefighters. Mesquite smells like sweet maple bacon. The native Nio has a pungent smell, so we know what's coming ahead. Pigs run out of the forest, away from the fire. Follow that direction. What also came out of this is one of the great concerns is that wildfire knowledge is not being passed down, as a number of senior firefighters who comprise the brain trust of the wildfire fighting community have recently, I shouldn't say recently retired, were retiring at the time that I was doing this research. So people like Wayne Ching, who are just a font of information, I don't know how much they are involved now and what actually trickled down, if you will, or across, as a number of the firefighters, again, the brain trust of Hawaii's firefighting community have retired. This is, again, just like a quick and dirty overview of the two projects that I worked on I think this was published in 2018, 2019. Clay and I did a chapter in this book, Fire Otherwise, which is on the more in depth on the place-based environmental knowledge of Hawaii's firefighters. What I suggested, Melissa, if there's time and interest in, because we thought maybe 5 minutes for this, so I'm kind of zipping along. I would certainly be happy to give a more in-depth presentation on the sort of the findings of this, because it certainly has applications for the other Pacific islands, I'm sure. And it might be something in terms of updating or expanding this inquiry and sharing it. It might be something worthwhile for the website that you just showed us.
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to hit you up for a pirated copy of this chapter.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And again, this intro is a little slapdash, but I just wanted to give folks an idea of what I had been working on prior to my other projects, not wildfire related, and my recent 1-year sabbatical. And hoping to do more with this as needed, again, post-August 2023.